Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Allie's Book Nook. Today I'm going to share with you my top reads from 2025. You'll see that I'm in a different location than my library because I ended up having too many books for it to work with filming in there. I have 30 physical books in front of me and then a couple books that I don't have physical copies of. It was just too hard for me to narrow it down out of the 95 books I read to 10 or 12. So here we go. This is my top 30. Top 31, I guess. So the book I don't have in front of me is Nuclear War by Annie Jacobsen. And I just listened to the audiobook of that last fall, and it was so good. It is actually a nonfiction book, but it reads kind of like a fiction book. It's like a what if scenario regarding the nuclear war program. So it was fascinating, terrifying, highly recommend, especially on audio. Now let's dive into the physical books here. A lot of these I also, almost all of them probably, I did the physical copy as well as audio. So here is my top 30 physical books, and some of these are a series. Okay, the first book I have, this is just the order that I read them this year. The first book I have was also my favorite book of the year and probably my favorite book ever. I wish I could read this book again for the first time. I loved it so, so much. And that is The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. This was so, so good. So this is a historical fiction book, and it takes place in the 1970s. This girl and her mother and father moved to Alaska for her dad to find work when they were building the Alaska pipeline. And man, this story, you just have to read it. If you get one recommendation from this video, go read The Great Alone. This holds a very special place in my heart, and I will definitely be rereading this. I have to find a place to put all these books now. Okay, the next book I have, my second favorite book of the year, same author, probably also my second favorite book of the year overall, and that is The Women by Kristin Hannah. This is another historical fiction book, and it is set in Vietnam during the war, and it's told from the perspective of a female nurse. And so it goes through what she faced being on the front lines as a nurse, as well as what she faced when she got home. And I learned a lot about the war, and very touching story. This is the only book this year that made me shed a few tears. Just a couple, but man, this was good. Okay. The next book I have, so those were both 5 stars. Not all of these were 5 stars at the time. This one was not, but it's a book that I still think about quite a bit, and this is Nos4A2 by Joe Hill. This is a horror book, and this is about a girl that can kind of transport to different times through this old tunnel. And it's also about this guy named Charlie Talent, who kidnaps kids and takes them to Christmas Land. And she is his only survivor, and so she has to go back and try to stop him from doing these things. So that was a great book. Like I said, I still think about it to this day. It'd be a good book to read if you want like a spooky holiday story with Christmas Land. Okay, these next 7 books are actually part of a series, and so I just included them all. And that is the series of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. This is a young adult book. I would call this, I don't know if I would call it fantasy, maybe a little fantasy, a little horror, kind of creepy, but so good. So there are 6 books plus 2 companion books. I read one of the companion books, and all of them have photographs that play along with the story. So I did audio on this too, but highly recommend the physical or ebook for the pictures. So first one is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. The second book in the series is called Hollow City. followed by Library of Souls, A Map of Days, and this is actually a signed copy, followed by the Conference of the Birds. And then the last book in the series is called The Desolation of Devil's Acre. And then I also read one of the companion books, which is called Tales of the Peculiar. And this is like some, based on some kind of fairy tale lore that happens somewhere between the second and third book in the series. And this is some of those, I guess you call them fairy tales. So I love that series. I never hear anyone talk about it. The first book came out in 2011, so it is somewhat older. And it is, like I said, young adult, but it's so, so good. So highly recommend that. Okay, the next book I have is another Kristin Hannah book, and this is The Nightingale. And this copy I have here is a 10th anniversary edition, so it does have the sprayed edges and the silk bookmark and, you know, some other fun features. But this book is another historical fiction book that she wrote. It takes place during World War II in France, and it's a story of two sisters. One of them joins a resistance against the Nazi invasion, and the other one is caught up in it in her own way, and it's very heart-wrenching and just a very memorable book that will soon be a movie. Same with The Women and the Great Alone. Those are getting movie adaptations as well. Another book of hers that I read in 2025 that I really enjoyed and I don't have here is called The Four Winds. And that is a historical fiction book that takes place during the Dust Bowl in the 1930s, I believe. Okay, next book I have here is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. And this is like a sci-fi thriller book. And it basically involves multiple realities. This guy, he is a professor, like a physics professor. He gets kidnapped and he wakes up and he basically has all these multiple realities that he has to go into to try to find his way back to his family. I'm sorry. Every time I do a video, my animals are always like interrupting. Next book I have is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the latest book in the Hunger Games latest installment in the Hunger Games series. And this is a prequel, and it covers Haymitch's participation in, I think it's the first Quarter Quell Hunger Games. So he goes on to be a character in the original Hunger Games trilogy. So this takes place between Songbirds and Snakes in the first Hunger Games book. And this is another book that's really emotional. I would call this like a dystopian fiction book. It might technically be considered young adult, but really, really good. Also getting a movie adaptation. So the next book I have here is Come With Me by Ronald Malfi. And this book, this is my first read by him. This is a horror book, but it was so good. It read also like a thriller book. It definitely had some thriller crime aspects to it, as well as a little bit of paranormal, and just really good. This is about a man whose wife named Allison has disappeared. Actually, she was unalived. And he, after she passes away, he finds like a receipt to a motel room that she was at. So then he's like, he didn't know about that. So he basically goes on a quest to try to find out what was happening. And he basically learns that she had this whole other life that he didn't know about and what she was really doing. And it's very interesting. And I don't want to give too much of it away, but great book. The next book I have is another Blake Crouch book called Recursion. This is another, I would call it sci-fi thriller book, and it deals with, I guess, kind of different realities. People start to, is this, memory makes reality is what it says. So yeah, there's a phenomenon that the media has dubbed false memory syndrome, and it's where people start to remember things that didn't happen, and it like skews their reality. And I don't want to say too much more, but this is a really good book. Both of his books that I've read have been very easy to follow, even if you're not like they're not like hard sci-fi. And they have a lot of great character development. So highly recommend that one. And I will be reading more of his this 2026. Okay, the next book I have is Gray After Dark by Noelle Eiley. Noelle W. Eiley. Excellent story. And this is a signed copy I have here from when I got to go meet her in November. And this is based on the true story of a biathlete named Carrie Swenson, who in the 1980s, she was kidnapped in Montana by a father-son that were kind of, they're like backwood crazies, and for lack of a better term. And in Noelle's book, it takes place in Idaho, and as many of her books do, and it is what would be called a survival thriller. Very, very intense. Covers this girl's kidnapping and her experience with that, and her attempt to escape. Highly recommend this. I was on the edge of my seat with this book. So yeah, this was one of my favorites for the whole year. Next book I have here is Ghostwritten by Ronald Malfi. This book surprised me because this is a series of short stories. I think it's 4 short stories. And normally I'm not a huge fan of short stories, but this was so well written. Started out as one story, but his editor asked him to write several short stories. So they all, it's horror, but they all have a common theme of books being involved in these horror stories. And there's one story in particular in here that the third one, I still think about that story a lot. Really liked it. So that is Ghostwritten by Ronald Malfi. Next one we have is a thriller called Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. And you could actually call this maybe a cross-genre book because it does deal with time travel, I guess. So this gal, she watches her son unalive someone, and then she wakes up, goes to bed, wakes up, and it's the day before the murder. And then same thing, goes to bed, wakes up, it's a day earlier. So she has to, as she's basically going back in time every time she falls asleep, she has to try to figure out what happened and hopefully stop the murder. Really, really good. Fun concept. Next book, this was another favorite of the year for me, and this is The Silent Woods by Kinney Cunningham Grant. This was so good. This was very emotional. I would call this a literary thriller. So it's got a lot of prose in it. The author is a poet. But anyway, this is about a father and daughter who live secluded in the Appalachian Mountains, and they rely on someone to bring them supplies once a year. And one year that guy doesn't show up. Meanwhile, there is someone new in the woods that is very mysterious, and the daughter is drawn to, and this perfect little life that they have built out there begins to unravel, and you find out the reason why they're out there hidden away from the world. So really great book. I love this book. I love the ending of it. This is one that I kind of had a little bit of a book hangover when I finished it. But then I read a really, really amazing series called the Black Winter series. And that is a 4-book series by Darcy Coates. So this is in the horror genre, but it's kind of like a dystopian horror book series. And it's 4 books. It follows a gal named Claire and what is the male main character's name? Does it say on the back of this one? Is it Donovan? Doran. So Claire, something happens, a worldwide event, and she is trying to race to a family member's house, and there's a big snowstorm. She crashes. She doesn't remember very much, but she wakes up in this stranger's house, and then it's like, this takes place over less than a year, but it's the story of what happens from there and her trying to remember what the big event was and what things are like now. So the series is called Black Winter, and the first book is called Voices in the Snow. The second one, I love these covers, is Secrets in the Dark. The third one is Whispers in the Mist. And the fourth one is Silence in the Shadows. And I devoured this series. I loved it. This is another top favorite of 2025 for me. And I like how she was able to write a really catchy, spooky story without being vulgar. There weren't really any risque scenes or foul language. It's just really good, solid writing. So I really appreciated that. She's very talented, and I want to read more of her books in 2026. Okay, the next book I have is Such Quiet Girls by Noelle W. Iley. I read a lot of her this year. Not all of her books made it to this video, but this one we also got a signed copy. My husband did, but this is actually my book. And this is also based on a true story about a kidnapping of a bus and children held for ransom. The real life story happened in the 70s in California. This book takes place in modern time in Idaho. And this bus of children is kidnapped. They are put in like a bunker and held for ransom. And this follows their story. So really good. I guess I would call that a survival thriller as well. Next one we have is a horror book called The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And this was my first read of hers. I really liked it. Yes, it's horror, but it also has like some thriller aspects and some I don't know if I'd call it character driven more than plot driven, but the characters are very well written in here. So this takes place in alternating timelines between the 1980s and present. In the 1980s, this gal's aunt works at a rundown motel and she goes missing. So modern day, her niece goes to spend some time there, gets a job at the same motel. Now it's very rundown. And she's trying to find out what happened to her aunt all those years ago. And some weird things start happening. Really good. Next book I have is another Noelle Iley book called Run on Red, a thriller, also a survival thriller, and also signed by her. So this is actually based on a true event that happened to the author. So in real life, the author, like when she was a teenager, she was going to a bonfire out in the woods, and her and her friend and a truck tried to run them off the road, tried to trap them from proceeding. The guys were covering their faces with hoodies, and it was like a really scary experience. The men definitely had ill intentions. Luckily, she was able to get away in real life, but she drew on that experience to write this story, imagining what the worst case scenario would be. So we do have two young female characters going to a bonfire, remote area. Same thing happened. These guys tried to run them off the road and everything. But in this book, the girls aren't so lucky. They don't get away. This takes place in the early 2000s, and this was another very tense read. Highly, highly enjoyed this one. Run on Red. We are getting down there. Okay, the next book, this is my last Noelle Iley book, but I love this book so much, and this is Ask for Andrea. And I feel kind of weird putting it in this video, even though I reread it this year. I originally read it in 2024, and it was tied for #1 in 2024 with Taylor Adams' No Exit. But I read it again and listened to it again when I was going to go meet her this year, or in 2025. And still, I mean, it still hit the same way on the second read. So this is Sprayed Edges. It says, Dead Women Don't Forget. Also a signed copy. It says, thank you so much for driving to meet me. And basically this was more loosely inspired by true events, I guess. This was loosely inspired by the victims of Ted Bundy. So in this story we have, is it three women that were all unalived by the same serial killer. And very interesting perspective, because you follow them after they are unalived. They're basically spirits, ghosts, whatever. And they are trying to stop him. Well, the first one, she goes with him, she tries to stop him. And they all have these different experiences. And even though they're ghosts, they have some, I guess, paranormal powers, but they can't, like, it's limited. So, like, one of them, she's kind of good with tinkering with technology, making, like monitors go out, stuff like that. But, you know, something that you would expect to be more realistic. They are very limited in their powers. But it is such a touching story. So this is also probably considered a survival thriller book, especially like the last third of it. But it does have some paranormal elements, but it's not scary. It's not like scary ghosts or anything. And I just thought that perspective was so interesting. And these characters, you really feel for them. And there was one part, even my second go around in this book, where listening to the audio, I almost started crying. That's how much I emotionally resonated with these characters. So this is such a great book. I will probably never stop recommending this book, and that is Ask for Andrea by Noelle W. Eiley. Okay, the next book I have in here is Long Time Gone by Charlie Donnelly. This book, I know I didn't give 5 stars because the ending. There was something in the ending that was really far-fetched to me. But I still have it in this video because it was my first Charlie Donnelly book. I've read a couple more since then. And I really like him, and I want to read more of his books into 2026. And also, I put this one in here because it's a really interesting premise. So far his books that I've read have been like crime mystery thrillers, and they do have more of like a scientific element to them. Like, actually most of them, that I think I've read 3 of his books now, and they all have like pathology reports and stuff like that. So in this book we have a gal that is she's gonna be a medical examiner, and as she's in school, part of her assignment is that she has to do genealogy research, and she knows she was adopted. When she does it, she finds out that her birth parents actually went missing with her when she was just a baby. So she actually is this missing baby from 20 plus years ago. And so then she goes on a journey. She goes back to the hometown where it all happened, and it's run by this very powerful family, and she's trying to find out what happened to her parents and herself all that time ago. So I really liked the plot. I thought it was fairly unique for a thriller, and other than that one part, it was really good. And so I had to put that in here because, yeah, I think I definitely want to read a lot more of his books this year. Okay, the next book I have, this is also one that I've read in the past. We have 2 more books. This one more, so bear with me. I've read this many, many years ago, like 20 plus years ago, and I did a reread this year, and that is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. This was definitely my longest book of the year at over 1,400 pages. But very good. And I also did this on audio. Most of these, like I said, I also did on audio, but I think that helped with the pronunciations because this takes place in France. It takes place in the 1800s. So this is a classic literature book, but so well written. Definitely stands the test of time. The plot twists in here are are great. So this was originally published as a series, and this is about Edmond Dantes. He is a young man. He has his whole life ahead of him. There are 3 people that are basically jealous of him, and they conspire against him. They have him wrongfully imprisoned, and he is very cleverly, I can't say that word, but it's a very clever written plot how he was able to escape prison. And he comes across this mass fortune where he now has access to high society France and the people that did him dirty. And he goes back, he calls himself the Count of Monte Cristo, even though he's technically not a count. He has all this money, so people don't question it. And he plays a long game in getting his revenge on the people that wronged him. And yeah, it takes place over several years. This is like a saga here. And so I don't want to give too much away, but I will say if you're reading this, there are a lot of subplots. Don't Google any characters because you'll get spoilers, and that was my problem. But highly recommend this story. Everyone should read this at least once in their life. It might take you a long time to read it, but it's so worth it. That is The Count of Monte Cristo. Okay, and the last book I have for 2025 favorites is just a fun book. It was just really fun and nothing too serious, but this is Devolution by Max Brooks. And this is technically considered a horror book. So this is like a Bigfoot book. And it's called A First-Hand Account of the Rainier Sasquatch Massacre. So this is about Mount Rainier, which is a volcano in Washington. It erupts, and there is a community, a secluded community in Washington that now they're cut off from society because of this natural disaster, and they start to have some encounters. And at first they want to deny it, but they can't. And so this is told mixed media, journal accounts of one of the people that were there when it happened, as well as interviews with park rangers, because this happened like a couple years ago, and then a brother of one of the people that was involved, he's trying to find his sister, so he interviews park rangers and all that. They had discovered her journal, which was very detailed in terms of the account of what happened. And so you're kind of, going back and forth, but most of it takes place when that happened. And this was a great one to listen to on audio. It had various narrators and kind of almost like a full cast. So this was really good. I think this would make a great movie if they ever decided to go that route. It's written by the guy that wrote World War Z. So just a fun, nothing too serious, but kind of a fun Bigfoot book. And in fact, Blake Crouch, who wrote Dark Matter, this is what he said. He said, "The Bigfoot thriller you didn't know you needed in your life, and one of the greatest horror novels I've ever read." So yeah, you didn't know you needed a Bigfoot book in your life? Well, you do. So those are my favorite reads for 2026. It's really hard for me to pick like favorites, but I think if I had to pick like a top 5, okay, I'm going to give you my top 5. That's really hard because the Black Winter series was really good. So let's just call it the top 5 out of standalone books, okay? And so obviously The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. Go read this. Great Alone. And then The Women by Kristen Hanna. Yes. Gray After Dark by Noelle Eiley. And these are not really in it. Okay, so if I'm going to order them, it would be Great Alone, The Women, and then Ask for Andrea. And then Gray After Dark. And then 5th place would be These Silent Woods. And then a close 6th place would probably be the Black Winter series by Darcy Coates. So there you have it. Those are all of my top reads for 2025 out of the 95 books I read. I'm really looking forward to some great reads in 2026. So far, all the books I've read, which I'm on my 4th one, have been really solid. And I have at least 1, possibly 2 that might make this list again at the end of 2026. So let me know what your favorite reads were for last year. If you have read any of these books, what your thoughts are on them. And thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.